Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Shannon Davenport, CEO of NCC, and your host for tonight's community learning event. And I'm joined here by Dr. Jason Neiffer, and we are going to present to you, or Jason is going to present to you, the Project Whisperer, teaching AI to tame your projects. Sounds like a good aspiration for the new year for everyone. At NCC, we're passionate about providing high impact EdTech learning. And so Jason's making that possible tonight. So, Jason, thank you for being here with us to do that. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Jason before he gets started. Right now, I feel like he is almost the AI king. That I know you're going to laugh at that, Jason, but you have been bebopping around helping everyone with AI. And so, very, very qualified for tonight's session. So, Dr. Jason Neiffer is the executive director of the Montana Digital Academy and NCC's Tech Savvy Administrator in residence. For over 28 years, Jason has been exploring innovative ways to blend technology and pedagogy, making learning full, engaging, more meaningful for students of all ages. His professional interests include distance learning, media literacy, digital productivity, social studies, humanities, and right now, specifically, artificial intelligence, just like the rest of us. He's a frequent speaker nationwide, focusing on high quality digital learning. He goes deep with his digital learning pedagogy. So we're so excited to learn from you. I think this is a unique fact, Jason. Your first experience in EdTech was in 1984. Some people listening this might not be able to go back that far, but I certainly can. When he set up all the Apple computers at Roosevelt Elementary in the fourth grade. So I love that. I think that's funny, but I remember that. And then he's also since then been chasing the thrill of Lemonade Stand and the Oregon Trail. So I don't know Lemonade Stand, Jason.
It's good. I would say it pales in comparison to its modern day simulation equivalents, but still high quality, bleepy, high dot learning from the early '80s for sure.
All I can remember is if you could get some time on that Apple IIe computer, that was
Yeah.
amazing. So lots of Oregon Trail for me too. So Jason, we are ready to learn how we can be more efficient and productive in all of our projects. So take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Shannon, for that great introduction. So, hello again. My name is Jason. Pleasure to be with the NCC community, and I hope that whether you're live with us today or you're taking a look at the archive of this, that you accept this as an invitation to connect. Because while I'm going to show you some things today that to be very frank, really blow my mind, the bottom line is that our community, and I mean certainly the NCC community, but also the digital learning community, EdTech teachers in the Pacific Northwest and beyond, but more importantly, all teachers of all stripes in all locations really do need to be collaborating as this technology starts to evolve. And so I'll mention this a couple of times today, but very little what I'm going to show you today is out of the box ready, because to be quite honest, I don't think anything is really quite out of the box ready with AI yet, but it's a vision of where I think we're going that I think could make a really huge difference for teachers and students. And so before we get started, I do have a short link to share with you today. There's also a QR code on the screen if that's in any way useful. But halfpipe.link/NCCE Project 25 will take you to this slideshow, which I will give you access, or which you have access to. But on top of that, there are several links here to resources that everything I'm sharing today is available to you already pre-constructed if you like. And while I'm going to give you some kind of instructions on how to put this together yourself, it really is, I think, a metaphor for what is about to be available as these technology companies start to connect all of our world together with AI and present us a really extraordinary opportunity to think about, what's possible inside of a classroom. And I will say that there is a slide, it's the third slide available that has several links on it to the resources for today. So feel free to use those in perpetuity. They're all Creative Commons licensed, so you can use them inside of your non-commercial projects. That's especially true of any teaching and learning projects. And then I also want to note that I am very open to collaboration on this. I've found over the last 6 months in particular that my brain and kind of dreaming about what AI can do for classrooms gets about 80% there, but the magic 20% is the collaboration that I do with others in order to implement these ideas in a meaningful way. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to me if that can be in any way useful to you. So before we get started on the specifics for today, I do want to introduce the fact that my organization, the Montana Digital Academy, which is Montana State Virtual School, is evolving in the services we offer across the state of Montana and beyond. And over the last 18 months, we've worked really closely with the Montana legislature and other entities across the state to identify that there needs to be a kind of a nonprofit voice in technology services in a rural state like Montana, not unlike what NCC provides across the Pacific Northwest. And so that turned into an appropriation to open up the Frontier Learning Lab, which is the edge technology lab that is centered at Montana Digital Academy. And in addition to working on AI projects, we're also working on AR, VR projects. Members of our team will be at the NCCE conference in February talking about AI and other initiatives that are in the state of Montana and how we're trying to provide direct support, particularly to very rural schools across the state of Montana. But one of the things that is available to really anyone in the community, and this is capacity dependent, is we did open up what I think is the nation's first AI help desk for teachers. And so if you are interested or are looking for collaboration or expert information, whether you're in the state of Montana or not, can email ai.help@mtda.org and get access to our team. It includes me, our lab director, Caitlin Byers, Mike Gustinelli, who's also an NCCE guy, and we are thrilled to be able to provide the capacity that we can to assist teachers in this conversation. And I also want to note too, and there's a link to this on the slide deck as well, we do have a Substack that we're trying to kind of host our learning very publicly, because we think that the public conversations are absolutely critical here. And we want to be able to push teachers and administrators and paraprofessionals and teacher librarians and all the folks that make schools run into conversations to talk about where to go with this tech. Conversation we think is absolutely critical. So feel free to subscribe to our Substack and to get notifications of new stories there, and also follow along with the Frontier Learning Lab. So to our presentation today, I want to provide a little bit of context before we jump into the specifics. Big picture, AI's everywhere. And I really do love this article from ASU, which is arguably perhaps a leader, if not the leader, in this kind of K-12 and higher ed space when it comes to implementing AI. And we like their approach that AI should not be a replacement for human intelligence, but rather a tool to enhance our collective creativity and problem solving. And that's something that we need to keep focusing on over and over and over again, especially as AI overcomes all the problems that people were highlighting as a reason not to use it 3 years ago when ChatGPT 3.5 was released to the public. And I will tell you that I think right now, very broadly, that we are probably short of a good approach systematically. There's lots of amazing work going on in classrooms and in schools and in districts across the United States. But I think very broadly right now, our approach to AI is not getting us what we need in order to be successful. And so right now, a lot of AI related projects end up pitting people against one another as opposed to having having the right kind of one-on-one, department-wide, school-wide, district-wide, community-wide, statewide conversations that are going to allow us to ideate what our response to emerging technologies is going to be. And while today the technology is AI, 25 years ago it was internet, and 15 years ago it was social media, and 15 years ago it was mobile phones. And I think that I agree with the broad consensus that a lot of those technologies didn't bring the functionality we could have because we under-resourced the planning or under-resourced the professional learning. But right now, for me, I think one of the problems is the tension that we're feeling, that AI is introduced into our stratosphere, whether it's the idea of teachers, professors, and students competing against one another in a bit of an arms race of who can win the AI race instead of figuring out a way to embrace this technology in a meaningful way. I do see tensions happening between administrators and teachers, not always on different sides. Sometimes it's the administrators that are pushing AI initiatives and teachers pushing back, and sometimes it's teachers pushing AI initiatives and administrators pushing back. But in any case, there's tension in a lot of these conversations. I know for a fact, in part because I help run a program that deals directly with the use of AI in classes, that parents and schools aren't necessarily always on the same side of this. And in some cases, parents are pushing more aggressive AI implementation in classrooms before schools are ready. And in other cases, schools are pushing AI into their day-to-day practice, and parents aren't quite on board yet. And again, I think this is a common phenomenon across all educational institutions. There's occasionally tensions between school board members that either want to see more AI progress in schools or are very leery of it, with school personnel that are on both sides of this issue. And of course, the anti and pro AI forces are very prolific, especially across social media. If you really need any evidence that we have a situation here, go on to LinkedIn and see what happens when people send out new studies that are either seemingly pro AI or anti AI. That you'll see an extraordinary exchange, oftentimes of very aggressive views on this process. And of course, there is a huge tension between big tech and creators in this space. A lot of creative people, creative types, creative people that work in creative jobs are pushing back very aggressively against AI because they feel like it's an existential threat. And I think it's not a far cry to say that it is an existential threat to creativity in the ways that we know it, especially over the last 10 or 15 years. And really, if we're being very honest about the tension, it probably is a big tech versus the world right now, as we try to figure out the best way for governments and institutions and broadly everything we hold dear to us technologically against what big tech is trying to provide. And of course, at the same time, we have all of this tension. There's no resources for able to invest more. District IT staff, which is trying diligently, I think, to wrap their brain around how do we deliver these tools in a safe and thoughtful way to our teachers and students and paraprofessionals and administrators. And there aren't necessarily the resources to deal with it straight up. So before I jump into the kind of philosophy behind what I'm talking about today, I do want to mention something that I think is really critical, that there is an inclination that AI is going to have a significant impact on jobs. And it will. It already is. Not necessarily perhaps the way we thought. Not a lot of positions are necessarily trading off with AI doing the job for them. But in big tech, for example, there's a lot of evidence that the stretch towards super intelligence, artificial intelligence, AGI, as it's sometimes called, or artificial general intelligence, absolutely will trade off with jobs, not because AI is doing those jobs, but because all the resources are going into development of AI. But I think that that's absolutely to come. Shannon, do I see a question?
Yeah, so we do have a question from Wes. Is the goal of the Frontier Learning Lab, Jason, to also help educate parents about AI and appropriate uses in education?
Well, thanks, Shannon. And also, hello, Dr. Fryer. Good to see you here. And yes, it is. And part of it is we'll start with community conversations here. We do have some schools that are doing some AI nights that we will be a part of, in part because we want to see what the parent response is. But yes, I think putting together resources for schools to do exactly this and also be proactive in pulling in their community to discuss where AI is going and what it can provide for students and schools, and also what it can't really provide, I think is important. And we definitely want to be part of that conversation. So back to jobs for a moment. I want to quote Ethan Mollick here. I think he is by far one of the best thinkers in this space, very practical in the way he implements things. And he wrote what I think is the best book on AI that was not relegated to obscurity the second it was published because of the environment of which it lives. A lot of people that are putting time and energy into the space around what are best practices around AI. The minute it's printed in a book, it's something that isn't relevant anymore. I don't find that to be the case with anything that Dr. Mollick's working on. But he is a professor at the Wharton School, and in his book in 2024, Co-Intelligence, which is an amazing book that's still very relevant, he says that the instinct of some companies might be to fire people because we can save money with AI doing it for them. But he says, and I think he's correct here, that companies that figure out how to use their newly productive workforce should be able to dominate any company that just tries to fire people because AI will do the same output with less people. And so if you put that into an education context, which, me just stealing Dr. Mullet's notion here that any school support staff should be able to dominate any other school that allows their workforce to become more productive and direct resources towards places where we don't already have people. And of course, we don't like to dominate other schools. We like to vastly outperform other schools. But I think there's something very much here that we can plan around, that it shouldn't be about, we have all these robots now that can do these cool things for us. So let's find out a way to get rid of the human element that we can't either fund or find. That shouldn't be the goal here. The goal should be, let's empower our teachers and our students with the best possible ways of utilizing these tools to make classrooms better. And for me, that means philosophically, we need to stop treating AI as a vending machine. It's not something you walk up to and ask for something and get what you want back. And we need to start shifting our thought away from AI as artificial intelligence and AI as augmented intelligence. How can these tool sets become a masterful tool for you to be able to appropriately and thoughtfully get more capacity to make the outcomes of your job better? And so for me, that means a lot of things, moving away from AI as vending machine to AI as thought partner. It also means moving away from faster. Faster is a good thing, and I don't want to diminish the fact that we work in an unfair time industry that makes extraordinary demands of the professionals on the ground. But our goal shouldn't be just faster, trading away our values, but rather it should be better. How do we get better outcomes with the tools and resources we have available now that AI exists? AI shouldn't be seen as an education replacement. Perhaps it's an incredible education mindset, perhaps a multiplier for educators, so that they can do more of the stuff that they know needs to happen inside of classrooms, that they can become more effective at their jobs, so they can provide more direct to student services because of what AI can evolve to. But more importantly, can we move away from the parlor tricks that AI can do? And don't get me wrong, I love the parlor tricks that AI can do. I own more images of me now that are AI generated than I care to say. And it really does provide a lot of amusement and bemusement to me for sure. But what can we do to create an opportunity to give every classroom teacher, no matter the size of their school, the location of their school, their own background and preparation, access to experts, because AI allows us to take information and make it actionable. And for me, I think the most important question we can ask of ourselves, I'm actually going to steal from someone else. This is from Caitlin Byers, who is the director of MTDA's Frontier Learning Lab. This is a sticky note she had sticking on her monitor. She asks, what kind of school becomes possible when we have AI? Not how will AI challenge schools, not how AI will challenge education. Those are important questions, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there is an opportunity for us here to go to the next level, to provide teachers the extraordinary tool set that may fully allow for differentiation of instruction, for what can we do to make the student experience better? How do we deal with this highly diverse set of students that are now being delivered to us every year in our classrooms in order to make the schools a better place and get us better outcomes in our very complex world? And if you are curious, if you are wanting to experiment, if you are looking to find ways to embrace this technology in a way that keeps a hold of your values and our system's values while at the same time giving you superpowers, then you are on the front lines of this. And you are the ones that will help us answer the question, what kind of school becomes possible because we have artificial intelligence? Okay. So I am going to do a bit of prognostication first, in part because we have to dream a little bit because the technology I'm going to show you today works, but I'm assuming in 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, this stuff is going to be a lot more automated. By the way, the prognostication name I have here is the Great Nifesto, which it was actually named by ChatGPT. Decided this was the best way to name myself in the prognostication game. It also created this delightful image of me as a prognosticator. But here are some things that are certain to become much more important to make AI more relevant beyond the vending machine way that we're using it now. Okay, the first technology is referred to as retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And if you've been keeping track of some of the technology behind large language models, RAG might be a term that is important to you. But RAG is a concept of it should always look at resources you provide first before referring to its cloud brain or what it's learned through training. In other words, one of the best ways we can use Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Quen, DeepThink, whatever the AI models we're talking about, isn't to rely on it to kind of come up or conjure information based on its best practices of what it's trained on, but rather we should provide it resources about expertise, about our context, about our students, in a broad sense, our communities, so that whenever we get answers back from AI, it's not a generic answer, it's based on our actual realities. That's one of the reasons why that even though prompting AI, which has been something that for 2 years, kind of A-lister ed techers have said that won't be necessary anymore because AI does it for you. I believe that to be the opposite of true, because AI gives you better answers the more context you give. And one of the ways you can do that context is by building a library of information that helps you do that. And to answer Dr. Fryer's question, building a library for Notebook LM is exactly RAG. And so if you've used Notebook LM before, Notebook LM is a RAG tool. I'm going to be showing that off today in somewhat detailed um, uh, um, way in a moment, but that's exactly it. When you provide your own resources for AI, it's going to give you better answers. The second piece of information that is not on the purview of most people, except for AI developers, but it's something we're experimenting with, is something called MCP, or Model Context Protocol. And MCP is a server strategy that allows an AI tool to hook up with an existing server, access, retrieve, and modify information. It works in the background. If you've never heard of MCP before, that's totally understandable. But some of the technology I'm going to show you today takes advantage of MCP so that your AI can talk to your actual data automatically, that you don't have to share it with AI. It will do it automatically. And a lot of mainstream ed tech tools are adding MCP servers, not because they're relevant right now, but soon enough, as we start to gather, more best practices around AI, we can do interesting things with that, because I think that's something we want to be very, very cognizant about. Okay. And then the last important piece of information is regarding context windows. And you may have heard of a context window before. A context window is simply the amount of things that AI can pay attention to at one time and get meaning out of. 3 years ago, the context window was very small for AI. And in fact, the first AI model that had larger context windows was the Anthropic tool called Claude. And you could upload whole books to Claude, which was an amazing evolution in these tool sets. Well, now, AI tools have very large context windows. Google's Gemini 3.0 has a 1 million token context window. That's like being able to upload 10 full-length books to Gemini that you can then refer to and be able to have it provide expertise to. Notebook LM has a very large context window because they allow you to upload tens of thousands of pages, especially in the pay-for model, that it can analyze at once, utilizing its advanced strategies. And this notion of huge context windows is really important, because if you can give it more information to pay attention to at the same time, you're going to get better results. So I want to give you a quick demo here of what I mean by this. And this is not the context of our piece today, but I've been working on a tool set for the last 6 months that I call Astro. And Astro is basically my digital assistant. And so I'm now going to move towards, this is Claude, the model. I have a paid account for Claude. I pay for more of these than I should right now, but Claude does some special things that other tools don't do. But I'm going to just show you an example of this. I have 2 very large databases of information that I'm constantly referring to, and that's in Notion, which you'll notice right now I'm actually having Notion record this so I can go over this for myself later. And then Obsidian is another tool. And if you ever used OneNote or Evernote or Google Keep or any of the kind of knowledge management tools, they work just like Notion and they work just like Obsidian. But my use of Obsidian and Notion has been challenging for me, because once you have all this information, what do you do with it, right? Like, it's nice to have meetings you took at or notes you took at a meeting with your team or with an external vendor, but what happens, if you need to refer to that information? Where do you even find that information? And so I've set up a process in my Claude account where it has access to my Notion and my Obsidian as an MCP, or Model Context Protocol server, using RAG. So in other words, I have a library of information and a conduit hooking up my AI to my context, right? All my documents. So the way I get started is saying, hey, go Astro. And so it's going to search for its instructions inside my note-taking system. And first, it mixes me up for talking about the Astros, the baseball team, but it figures out very quickly because I have put in instructions about what to do. It's going great. I'm initializing Astro now. I'm getting the complete instructions. I've read the instructions. Perfect. I've got the core operating procedures loaded. Now let me do a quick vault health to understand the current state of your vault. And so it's reading all of my information and context information. And when it's done, it's going to say, I've looked at the vault. I'm reporting for duty. Let's go. I've asked it to be very proactive and fun. And now it's looking at all of my projects, all of my items that I need to process in my inbox. There's 42 of them right now. It knows that my Notion is for tasks and my Obsidian is for strategic reference, as I'm ready to support. Okay. So that's okay, right? But I should be able to ask things of this. So I'm going to say, hey, look at my calendar for today, please. And so it's hooked up my Google Calendar. It's accessing my Google Calendar. It's searching for events. And now it's going to give me a briefing on what my schedule looks like for today. So let's see what my schedule, at least what it was for today. So here's your schedule. So I had meetings today, including a leadership team meeting, a couple program meetings. I worked on a something with one of our team members. I had a conflict at one. I only went to one of those. I had a check-in with my buddy Mike today, and then I had the webinar on the schedule. So it does warn me about the overlap. It would allow me to shift things. It would change my calendar if I asked it to. Here's what I'm going to do. Hey, I go ahead and create meeting note templates for all of these meetings in my inbox in Obsidian. And I obviously had tons of typos in there, but it understands because it's worked with me for a while. But it's going to be like, great. I'm going to take a look at my meetings. And now it's going to create a template document for every meeting that's on my note for today. So if I go back now to my inbox, which I have saved lots of things to, let's see, what did it name this stuff? It will now put in meeting templates. Of course, it's not going to work exactly as directed because I'm doing it live. But it will put in meeting templates here that are based on a template I shared with it, right? So here we go. It's done all the meetings. Where did you put those? And it knows the naming convention is meeting. So I will reload Obsidian. And of course, it's not there. So, but you get the basic idea of how the tools work. Again, these are absolutely front edge tools, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But you get the idea here, right? And the point is that it can act on your behalf now, right? Okay, so please note some assembly is required for all these tools, right? But also know that this is on the ultra nerdy side. And I suggest setting this stuff up not because it's necessarily going to change your life, although I think it has the potential to do so. Understanding how these tools work with one another, which is where these kind of next level projects take you, is critical for getting what AI can do beyond the vending machine, right? And so our topic today is project management. So what I would like to show you is how you can use AI tool sets that are available to you for free in order to manage your project through this notion of RAG and MCP, okay? And so this is the second time I've given this presentation. Last month, it was to a group of instructional designers. And this is what my workflow looked like last month. It was a set of Google documents. It was a custom GPT, which I'll talk about in a second, and then Notebook LM. But the thing about these tools is that they're moving so quickly that we discovered that we only really need two tools to do this. And if you have a free Google account or a school-based Google account that has the AI features turned on, which I think is the safest way to bring AI to school teachers right now, if you're a Google school, is just to turn on the available AI tools, that actually my process for this has evolved in just the last couple of weeks, that all you need is a notebook, LM notebook, and the core documents that I'm going to share with you, or I shared with you earlier in this presentation. Okay, so let me start off with the basics. Notebook LM is a magical tool because it allows you to pick which documents you want to utilize for the purpose of answering your questions. And so today's topic is project management, right? And so if you're a project manager already, maybe you know everything you need to know about project management and you can create outlines or you can create instructions. I am not a certified project manager. And in fact, I am a student of project management. I love the concept of it, but I don't have a certification. We can't afford a project management person on our staff at this point. Few organizations on the lighter side can. So I needed to put together a group of resources that could be what I like to refer to as a knowledge oracle. And so the way I did this, because I want to be very mindful of intellectual property, is I went and found as many college level textbooks as I could that discussed project management. And you can see here that the books that I picked all have Creative Commons licensing to them. And in fact, I named each document based on this notion of what its licensing is. In most cases, these are Creative Commons by non-commercial share alike, which means that you need to cite the source if you're utilizing it in a kind of a reconstruction way. You need to use it for non-commercial purposes. So anything in the not making money realm would be just fine. And then if you release information based on this, you would also release it with the same licensing, right? Now, in this particular case, we're not republishing this information, so we don't need to worry about the share alike component of this because we're sharing it openly. But what I've done here is taken these 10 textbooks and created a knowledge base for project management, right? And so I can ask questions of this, and based on all the sources here, it will provide me guidance. So I am new to project management, and I am trying to put together a new curriculum for my department. Give me a basic framework for project management. Okay, so it's going to now read all my sources. There are 10 of them. And again, if you haven't used NotebookLM before, this video is the first time that you're utilizing this. Let me assure you, it is one of the best tools available, and it's nothing short of magical, right? But what I love about it is exactly what it's spitting out right now, right? Like it's giving me a very basic strategy for project management. I would even argue that this is more than I'm looking for. And give it guidance to say, good start, way more than I need. Give me a simple first time project framework. And so it's going to take its response and now scale it back a bit based on all of these sources. One thing I do want to show you is as it's generating its new response, one of the things that's magical about NotebookLM is that if you click on a little dot with a number in it, it will not only tell you which source it picked up that information from, but it will take you directly to the place where it picked that up. So it always brings receipts with it, which of course is one of the critical problems with AI, is that it has a propensity to make things up. So if you're doubting one of the answers, then you don't have to worry about it because you can always double check the source where it got it from. Okay, so here we go. It's now given us a more simplistic project. If I want to, I can turn that into a Google Doc by just copying and pasting that information into a Google Doc, and now I have a framework. If this is all you do with NotebookLM, it will be an extraordinary tool set because it's going to do some amazing things for you by just having you collect the resources that you want to pull from and then be able to answer questions over your sources, right? But that's not the context of our webinar today. It's about how can we use it to help drive project management, right? So what I'm going to do is show you a couple of documents that I have created that will be useful to you in project management. You have access to all of these, right? But I have given you 3 documents that you can utilize in order to build a project manager, right? So one of them is a set of instructions, right? And one of the things that's very cool about NotebookLM is that if you give it instructions in one of your sharing documents, it will follow those instructions on your behalf. And so in this case, and again, these documents are available to you for free. You are so we're going to tell it, first of all, look at this information first before looking at any other resource. Ignore any section called for humans only and use the document O2 Project Manager Minimum Skills version 2025-11 as the foundation of your role as a project manager. I give it a name. In this case, I call it TESS, or the Task Execution Support System. A world-class project manager who has successfully led some of the most significant projects of all time. You are the go-to person organizations call upon to organize projects and bring them across the finish line. We like outdoor metaphors because it's the Frontier Learning Lab, so please do that. And always refer to the test project development map for the current status and critical up-to-date information. So that refers to these two documents. This is our trained up document about what a project manager does based on all of our research that we worked on. So this is going to be the personality of it. Do define the scope clearly because of why by doing X. That actionable piece helps make this more effective. And we have a document that is a development map. This one is particular to course development, but the project is the project form is the same. This is going to be our log file that will keep track of this over time. Okay. So that's a lot of information, but I'm going to put together the project for you so you can see what it looks like. Okay. So when you go into Notebook LM, it will start off with a blank screen, right? And again, this is free on any personal Google account for up to 50 sources, which is more than enough to make one of these work. If you are at a school that has this turned on, and this will be something you should lobby for if it's not, because it's the safest way to bring next level AI models to teachers in a school that's a Google school, then you can turn it on there. I'm also paying $20 a month right now for a Pro Gemini account personally, which means that Notebook LM gets many more sources, up to 300 sources and more queries per day. But the free version works well because I oftentimes use that for projects. So I'm going to build my notebook now. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually take all those 10 textbooks that I found in PDF, and I'm going to share these textbooks with Notebook LM. And I literally have these hanging out in a folder on my desktop, and I'm just going to drag them into my notebook here. And slowly and surely, it's going to start to process those books and make them sources that I can access. I'm also going to change the name of my project. So I'm just going to say I'm from Smith High School. We're developing social studies courses. TESS is the name of the platform, the task execution support system. And now we have 10 books on project management, right? But remember, we also have instructions we want to share with Gemini, and also a document on project management. And also we have a template, a map of project management that we might want to utilize here to help organize us. So I'm going to go back into Add Sources and Google Drive again. And I want to make sure I get the right ones of these. So I'm actually going to copy and paste all of my document URLs here. So that document has been added. Insert. And then I want my project management skills document that I'm going to add as a source. And insert. And finally, I'm going to add my course map project planner here. Oops. And that should usually process pretty quickly. Okay. Now, I know this doesn't look like much, right? But what you've created here is a comprehensive project manager. And the way you know that is you can ask it questions as Tess. Hey, are you Tess? Yes, I'm Tess, the task execution support system. I'm a world-class project manager. In this role, I'm also characterized as an outdoor enthusiast, as I often use outdoor metaphors, especially in working with the Frontier Learning Lab team at MTDA. Additionally, the project status and critical information I always refer to Tess project development map. Great. We are getting started today on the development of a new Montana history course at Smith High School. Can you give me a to-do list to help start the project? Okay, so remember, we've given it our project development map, so it already knows exactly where we're at with the project, which is we just literally started today. But now we can utilize the expertise here that it gives us in order to set out the project goals. And so it's going to say, great, that's excellent news. Let's start with that. And it's given us a very long answer here. We need to do the phase one, setting up base camp. The initiation phase is dedicated to defining the project, aligning stakeholders, and establishing the necessary infrastructure to begin planning. So if we go back to our test document, we can do exactly what it's telling us to do, which is to fill in the course information, fill in the narrative about what the project entails, and then start doing exactly what it asks us to do step by step. And in fact, if the list is too much, that's great. Let's do this step by step, please, based on the project plan. Please give me the first task to complete with instructions. Okay, and so now it's going to give me exactly the step-by-step instructions I was looking for. And so, identify the core reason, define the document overview. In other words, it's asking me to fill out the template to get started. And the best part about this is all the information that I add into here can easily be pulled back into a test. So let me give you an example of this. The project name is Montana History. And I'm noticing that I do not have read access to this, which I'm not going to be able to type in there. It's going to make me make a new copy of this, make a copy. Okay, well, backed into a corner by my own file submissions. But what you do here is essentially work through the project management piece of this, like fill out all the pieces of the blank, and you can actually ask any large language model to help you with what this template looks like. But after you add information in, all you need to do is go back to Notebook LM, and once it spots a change here, you can simply press the button which says refresh this document, and it will pull the latest version in. So in other words, you can create a project template document that walks you through the entire project, and tests every time you give it an update based on your Google document. Will pull that into the project and give you advice on where to go next. And this is an extremely powerful tool because you have not only the test platform that has broad-based project management training, but you have all of these experts in the form of these textbooks that can assist you through the process by telling you what is the best way to engage in project management as part of this process. And so it really is a very extraordinary way to do this. Okay. Now, to answer Dr. Fryer's questions, because it actually does a good job of leading us to the next part of the presentation. No, I think Notebook LM does do as good of a job as Claude or ChatGPT, but the reason why it is I think so effective based on those other tools is that last question you asked, which is that to be able to do it with ChatGPT or Claude, you have to constantly download the updated document into, a Word file, PDF, Markdown file, and then re-upload it to Claude or ChatGPT unless you have it connected to your Google Drive. Whereas with Notebook LM, all you have to do is refresh the source, your Google Doc source, and it will have the latest version. It's literally 2 clicks. Click on the document name, click to refresh, which means you can be working in your working document and then bring it back to test the project manager to see what your progress is, and then ask questions, along the lines of any sort of project management, like find things that we can do for 10 minutes today, or what are things that are undone in our project, or our project is stalled out. Give me some advice on how to put our document at this point. And I think that Wes, you're making the right point here. It is a bit of an agent. It's just not automated yet because the construction is required, right? And that's the part that I think is the kind of fill-in piece of this for teachers and administrators that are looking to figure out the advanced versions of AI. When you provide your own resources, and when you create a template or a framework or even a to-do list and share that with your AI tool, you've created a very powerful extra brain that can help analyze information and keep you on track. And that's the part that I think is really exciting about this, is the ability to then do very advanced work utilizing the notebook as part of this process. Okay. And then just to give you an example of this, this is test as a ChatGPT custom GPT. It's the same idea, right? But we could do things like upload the test project map each time we've updated it, and it will do the same thing. Gemini was behind other models until very recently. It is as good, in my opinion, as advanced ChatGPT and Claude models. So I don't think you're really trading off about doing anything inside the ChatGPT universe. But what I love about using Notebook LM for this is the fact that it can always get the most updated version of your Google document in 2 clicks, right? So you could literally keep a journal on there of the work you worked on, or keep a log of decisions that were made, or if we used it at MTDA, point it towards transcripts of leadership team meetings, or agendas for meetings, or board meeting minutes, or whatever documents we have that we want to get expertise pulled in on. You can create the notebook yourself and then utilize that notebook for pretty amazing things. Okay. So I'll share a couple other quick things here, and then certainly open it up for questions. The first thing that I would share here is that there's my slides, that you can use a lot of different platforms for doing exactly this, right? Core docs can be stored in all sorts of locations, whether it's Word or Notion or Obsidian or Google Docs or Microsoft 365 docs. If you can stay within one ecosystem, though, just in the Microsoft products, and they're starting to roll out more agentic or custom GPT style services, the better off you are. You can do this with custom gems. You could do this with Claude projects or custom GPTs, or there's some custom solutions that do this. I would argue to you, however, that Notebook LM is the best in class right now when it comes to the kind of walled garden of your information. So that's something to think about as part of this process. And we've already been through the live demos. And of course, it didn't work exactly as I wanted to, because that's how live demos work. But I've now kind of come to the end of the stuff I wanted to talk about today. I'll hold for some questions, and then tell you a little bit more about how to get a hold of me, and then pull Shannon in for our final comments. So any questions, comments, thoughts from our live viewers today?
So I see that Wes is typing again. You've got Wes, his interest is spark, Jason, and my mind is running too. I love the project management aspect of that. Um, really because even though we don't have per se project managers that have necessarily been formally trained, we do have people running projects. And especially in districts, you do. So I love training that for them to be able to ask questions. We're low on motivation maybe in a project and low on resources. So what's an
Yes.
agile approach that I can take to that? So that's how I see that being used.
Yes.
So I love, and we've had this conversation before. I think this is a good time to address that. You had to put a lot of work into that on the forefront, and you had to map your thinking. So like how could we do that, if we're a classroom teacher or we're a school leader?
That's a wonderful question, Shannon. And I would say it in two ways. First, you need to think about what expert resources you can bring to the party, right? And so in this case, I was able to find a wide variety of open source project management textbooks that provide that expertise, right? And think of it this way. If you've got a book or a resource or even a YouTube video that explains things, you can turn that resource into an expert. So go find stuff you trust, gather it in one location. And I think that the easiest place right now, although I'm sure there will be other tools that do this in the near future, is a notebook LM, right? And then start to see that notebook as the expert you're bringing in the room to help you get the job done, right? And then from there, the kinds of questions you can ask of a notebook LM is things like, I'm trying to insert the name of your task or your project, right? I'm trying to write a comprehensive exam. I'm trying to write a curriculum guide. I'm trying to write a better parent newsletter. I'm trying to run better faculty meetings. I've given you these resources. Give me a framework to ask questions of these resources so that I can come up with something that could be immediately useful to me as a framework for better faculty meetings. Or maybe it's a project plan for running next year's senior trip, right? And then when it's pulling from these resources, it's going to be better than both a Google or Bing search because you're not having to sift through things and then turn that into something else. But also, you can ask further questions to narrow down the output, right? Like maybe you just want to start with, give me a project management outline. Now I want you to refashion this outline to help me plan next year, the 2027 spring senior class trip to Washington, D.C., right? And so that's the way to see this. Gather your experts first, like you would if you had unlimited resources to do projects. I won't tell you where the law is right now on putting commercial books into here because I think it's really complicated. So that's why I've been sticking with open source text where I know there is no licensing issues. Courts are deciding that. We have an internal policy at MTD on how we control that, which is we have a print copy of anything we stick into an AI model right now because we consider that based on some Court of Appeals cases to be legit. It may change, but if you want to diminish the risk, use open source resources, and then treat them like an expert, right? Have it give you expert advice to do your X, right? Whatever that project is. So to a couple other questions in chat. Kirsten asked, do you feel that upgraded versions of whatever resource you choose is worth the expense for the average user? The answer is yes, but I don't know what I would do if I could only spend $11 a month or what that would look like, right? I'm lucky right now that I have the work that I do allows me some extra resources to keep multiples of these bought up. If I were to collapse down to one tool, I'm not sure what that would be. But I think that's the key consideration right now is do the tools do everything? But right now, as of 556 Mountain Mountain Time on December 2nd. If I were to collapse down to one tool that was a paid for tool, it probably would be Gemini, because it's the leader right now in almost every respect. But I think the free tools, especially Google Notebook LM is a good example of this, does a really good job even at the free level. And then Wes asked, probably the biggest question that I'm not even sure I could come up with an answer to, but what's been the most amazing experience you've had with AI so far for any kind of project? To be honest with you, it has been the development of expertise bots like this, right? Like I constantly reading expert opinions on things. I find it very difficult sometimes to take the expertise that I take in through reading and listening and podcasts and turn it into daily action. But now that I have sources available to me of all the information that I read and listen to, all the newsletters that I like that come in my email box, all the podcasts I listen to, I put a transcript in Obsidian. So now I can use an AI tool to ask questions of, a couple weeks ago, I heard a really interesting way of dealing with a tough employee conversation from a podcast. Can you look to see what that podcast was? It searches my Obsidian vault to find that. Now talk with me about what that's supposed to look like, and give me advice based on this generic situation that I'm dealing with. And the ability to have a conversation, to kind of push my thinking has been a real game changer for me. Favorite tool for creating transcripts from audio podcast? My favorite tool right now is called Mac Whisper. There's a free version available. It requires a modern Mac with an Apple Silicon chip in it. You can get an education discount to get the free lifetime version for $30, and it is by far the best tool. If you're looking for an online tool, my favorite one right now is TurboScribe, which you can get an unlimited account for 1 year for about $100. But I think that's going to change soon because there was a massive new open source models released in the last 3 weeks that do that audio to text thing even better. So lots of tools coming across the way. Mac Whisper is the one I would use right now. Okay, Shannon, I'm just going to share my contact information here really quickly. I am eager to collaborate here, whether it's through the AI help desk at mt.org or my email address at NCCE is here. I'm on the socials, but the place to find me most often is LinkedIn now, because I don't want to get into persnickety arguments with people on other social media platforms. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to go. And thank you for your time and attention today. And it's really my pleasure to hand this back to Shannon now.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. You have given us a lot to consider. We love that. So thank you for helping us think outside of the box a little bit. And if we have any more questions that come in, you just watch the chat for me for a second and we'll get those addressed. But as we wrap up, we just want to leave you with a quick reminder, just always carefully evaluate and select digital tools that align with your local privacy policy. Jason is shaking his head. And just your standards and your community that meet your expectations for your school district, because that will make a big difference in how your community uses all of these resources. And before we go, we want to invite you to our conference, which is February 25th through the 27th in Seattle. So we hope to see you there. Jason will be joining us there, and I hope everyone on this call will be joining us. And then whether you are looking for on-site virtual professional learning, we have you covered all year, and we have lots of free resources. So we would love to see you take advantage of all of our community resources. So check us out at ncc.org, and we just appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time tonight. Thanks.